Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. Peel Regional Police's Special Victims Unit is seeking the public's help identifying a man wanted for 2 sexual assaults. Both incidents happened in Brampton, not far from Sheridan College, and investigators believe there may be more victims. Dale Manukduk has that story.
Peel police are looking for this man, a suspect in 2 sexual assault cases in Brampton. The first happened on September 2nd.
At approximately 5:30 a.m., the victim, 19-year-old female, she was walking in the area of Steeles Avenue and McLaughlin Road, where the suspect allegedly sexually assaulted her before he fled the area.
Police say a second incident happened on September 22nd down the street near McLaughlin Road and Ray Lawson Boulevard. Around 1:30 a.m., the suspect allegedly assaulted another 19-year-old woman and fled.
Both victims, they sustained minor physical injuries. The suspect description based on the video out there, he's identified as a South Asian male, late 20s to early 30s, approximately 5'8" to 5'10" height, medium build, short dark hair with a receding hairline.
Police say it happened near Sheridan College. The school tells CBC Toronto it wasn't on campus. Word of the sexual assaults has residents on edge about walking around at night.
We don't know nothing. We just heard something happened, so we're kind of scared to go that way. And I said to her, no, let's start walking early, 6:30, 5:30. That's it, no more 8:30, 9 o'clock.
So we don't come out at night. They need more police here, like at night, evening.
Police advise to walk in well-lit areas, in groups, and to carry a cell phone in case of emergency. They're also asking for the public's help.
Any camera footage, who may have been in that area, anyone with that information about these 2 incidents around that time frame that I listed.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Brampton.
In Mississauga, Peel police say 4 more people are now facing charges in connection to the brazen theft of a Porsche SUV right from a driveway. Security video showed a woman ringing the doorbell at the victim's home, where she showed up to view a Porsche that had been listed for sale. Now, moments later, the woman is seen reversing out of the man's driveway, running him over and fleeing with his car. The man amazingly wasn't seriously injured, but 18-year-old Sarah Bradshaw of Brampton was later charged. She's now facing separate vehicle theft charges in Toronto, and Peel investigators say 2 men and 2 youths are now facing a number of charges in connection to the theft. North to King Township, where 3 people have been charged in connection to a shooting at a home. It happened yesterday morning near Bathurst and Bloomington. York police say a traffic officer heard gunshots coming from a nearby home. When he arrived, he spoke to a man who said 2 men were firing shots in the backyard and one of them was struck. The men fled the scene prior to police arriving. Police were later informed of a man at a local hospital suffering from gunshot wounds, and a 57-year-old and 2 teens have now been charged with attempted murder. In Toronto, a man in his 20s is dead after an incident at the Outer Harbour Marina this afternoon. Police say they received reports at around 1:30 for someone who had gone missing while working on a boat. Emergency crews were able to find him and pull him out of the water. He was rushed to hospital in life-threatening condition, but later died from his injuries. Police say it's not clear yet how he ended up in the water, but the Ministry of Labour says an investigation is ongoing. A Southern Ontario woman is being accused by a neighbor of ongoing harassment. It came to a head with an incident surrounding a water gun, and charges have now been laid. Philip Lee Shannock has more.
What was described as a harmless accident looks more planned from surveillance video. Wendy Washuk waves to Shehan Rochester, who refuses to respond.
She was at the end of the gate giving me this Cheshire smile and waving at me. Every time I'd come down with the mower, she'd wave at me. It was very strange and creepy, to be honest with you.
She appears to ask a child for a water gun and disappears from sight. The alleged assault happens off camera, but the aftermath is heard. To the victim, it was more than a harmless prank. Regardless of the method used, he was sure of the intent.
It was to kind of strip me of my integrity, right? Strip me of my dignity.
He says it's part of a campaign of ongoing harassment and collective bullying that goes back for years. And he says it's racially motivated.
I feel like we're targeted here. And I have a young family, and I have to do what I have to do, and my wife has to do what we have to do to protect our young family.
He's called the police 14 times. And he says the harassment has escalated since the story has gone viral to threats of violence. But he says he won't be intimidated into leaving.
Well, why should I? You know, at the end of the day, I was here first. We have a right to live here. This is Canada.
Washik stands by her story. She says she was having a playful water gun fight with a child at a party when she accidentally sprayed water on the neighbor. And she says she has no issue with Rochester.
I've never spoken to him other than, you know, going on my way to say hi for him to ignore me.
Washik says she cannot return to her job as an educational assistant until the case is settled.
We're suffering a lot for a little bit of water.
If the charges aren't dropped and barring any out-of-court resolution, the facts of this case will be heard in this courthouse. Washik's next court date is just before Christmas, which means this court case could extend into the next year. Philip Shannock, CBC News, Simcoe, Ontario.
Taking you east to Pickering now, where City Councillor Lisa Robinson has been issued a 90-day pay suspension. That is the most severe penalty possible under current rules. The municipality's Integrity Commissioner found she has been demonstrating unacceptable behavior that risks hurting marginalized groups. Robinson received the sanction after a complaint was filed against her, alleging several breaches of the council's code of conduct. It is the latest in a series of penalties leveled against her, and Pickering Mayor Kevin Ash said the situation underscores the need for changes to the province's Municipal Act to allow stricter sanctions, including the potential to remove someone from office. Robinson, meanwhile, has denied the Integrity Commissioner's findings. Significant changes are coming to Billy Bishop Airport. Today, Canadian and American officials spoke about a new customs facility that'll operate by the end of next year. Nama Weingarten has that story.
It has been a decade-long journey to get to this point.
A pre-clearance facility for U.S. travelers will soon be a reality at Billy Bishop. That's according to Canadian and U.S. officials who spoke at the airport today.
As it will enable access to more markets in the U.S., it will create jobs, it will further enhance the passenger experience.
That means that if you're flying to the U.S. from Billy Bishop, rather than going through American customs once you land, you'd be able to do it at the downtown airport before you board your plane. Something that could be big help when FIFA 2026 finally kicks off across Canada and the U.S.
Where our unique location downtown can get passengers from gate to game in 15 minutes.
So what does this mean for the airport? Officials say it'll add 1,600 more jobs and is expected to generate millions in added tax revenue. Plus some security perks for the U.S.
Pre-clearance also has wonderful safety and security benefits. It allows us to screen individuals prior to boarding a flight, which means we are able to identify any threats or prohibited items earlier along in the process.
Some Billy Bishop travelers say the whole reason they like the airport is because they don't have to worry about missing their flight while waiting in line for customs. But others I caught up with at the airport say they love the idea.
I think it would be easier. But again, if they can make the process quick, fast, easy, have as many lanes.
You've gone through customs, it's over with, you land in your destination and you're finished. You don't have to worry about what's going on in the U.S. airport that you're flying to.
This marks the first time Canadian and American officials came together to reaffirm their commitment on this project. But this latest announcement offers no real update on progress on the facility, which is set to open in late 2025. For now, travelers from this airport can expect to continue going through American customs all the way on the other side of the border. Nama Weingarten.
Welcome back. Some sports leagues in the GTA and across Ontario are trying a new way to crack down on abuse and harassment against referees. Lane Harrison has that story.
Anyone who's been involved in minor hockey knows emotions run high, and some leagues are trying to bring them down this year. Especially when it comes to the officials who keep the game moving, who often receive unsolicited negative feedback.
It's something that can be difficult, and a lot of people struggle with it.
18-year-old Harry Smith is a ref with the Greater Toronto Hockey League. Now a seasoned official, he still has early memories of being yelled at on the job.
I was a bit nervous, but after the game when I went home and I thought, you know what, like, I'm a 15-year-old guy and it's a grown man or a grown woman yelling at me right now, and I'm not in the wrong. I'm just trying to do my job, right? And if they have a problem with that and they get personal, that's on them, that's not on me.
But he says every ref doesn't handle it so well.
And when there's a lot of pressure being put on them, when they're just trying to learn, trying to figure out how to do things, it's really difficult. So people tend to give it up.
That's something both the GTHL and Ontario Minor Hockey Association are trying to stop this season. In the OMHA, teenage officials will wear green armbands, while first-year officials wear them in the GTHL.
The green armband is a reminder to parents that, kids and officials are just getting started in officiating, especially at the younger levels, and it's a reminder to them that the person they may be getting emotional with is only a child or a young youth themselves.
The GTHL piloted the idea in house leagues last winter and is expanding the program this fall. The OMHA is bringing in the armbands for the first time this year.
We've certainly had situations over the last couple of years where team officials have actually come on the ice and tried to physically get at the officials, not so much to want to harm them, but to make sure they understand that they're screaming their frustration at those team officials, those on-ice officials.
When it comes to what's driving the bad behavior, one expert says it's a mix of factors, including the way some now approach the game.
We do see sort of a trend towards earlier and earlier specialization in sport, which I think that plus kind of this nonsense of like a professionalization of youth sport, that there's this sense that there's more investment from families, more time, more money. And I think that can lead to like a heightened sense of importance, that this is really, really important.
Looking ahead to this season, Smith thinks the expansion of the GTHL armband program will be a positive for the league.
Everyone does it. We speak before we think, and that happens. But I think the real initiative with the green armband is, okay, now there's something here telling me and reminding me that it's a human, that it's someone that's trying to learn something new.
Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
Turning to an historic honor for a Toronto sports legend, former Raptor Vince Carter is back in town, unveiling a refurbished basketball court in his name. And while he was here, the Raptors also officially announced some historic news we reported earlier this week. Carter's Raps jersey will be the first in franchise history to be retired. Greg Ross has more.
Not the best kept secret, as you mentioned. This is something that's been rumored for days now, but Raptors president Masai Ujiri making it official on this court right behind me with Vince Carter right beside him, announcing that, yes, the Raptors are going to be retiring Vince Carter's number 15, the number that he wore while he was a member of the Toronto Raptors. And Vince Carter, very emotional. Tears were streaming down his face after hearing the news that his number was going to be hoisted to the rafters at Scotiabank Arena. Here's what he had to say shortly after getting that news.
I just have a great appreciation for what this means. And I don't take that for granted. And I think that's where the emotion comes from, because it's like I'll go home and I'll sit there and I understand, like, yes, it's an honor. We talk about it, celebration, but like the deeper impact for, for like that sits there forever. Like, it's crazy.
But as we said off the top, that wasn't the reason Vince Carter was actually here at this basketball court in Dixon Park in Toronto's North End. He was actually here to unveil this refurbished basketball court here. This is a court that Vince Carter actually built with his foundation back in 2003 when he was still a player with the Raptors. So he was here to unveil this court 21 years ago, back here today after joining with the Toronto Raptors and as well as the city of Toronto to put into $1 million into rebuilding this court, to putting down a new surface. They've got new nets, they've got new backboards. Obviously, a much nicer looking court after 21 years. It needed some work, and Vince Carter was happy to come back. They've also added some courts off in the distance, way behind me here. They've added some half courts, another full court. So lots of basketball happening here in Dixon Park, and you can see the kids are already enjoying it right now, Chris.
Now, Greg, despite all that emotion that we saw, and of course some electrifying highlights that we know that Vince Carter has had in his Toronto career, there was also some complications to his legacy here. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, there are some people that might have some mixed emotions about the fact that Vince Carter is getting his number retired. He actually addressed it here on this court. He is fully aware of that because when he left Toronto, he didn't leave under the best circumstances. Let's remember, he came here as a first-round draft pick in 1998, and he really took the basketball world by storm. In 2000, he really electrified basketball fans, particularly here in Toronto, maybe putting Toronto on the basketball map by winning the slam dunk contest at the All-Star game and doing some things we had really never seen before. He was also a big part of leading the Raptors to their first ever postseason appearance. But then, of course, several years after that, he decided he wanted to leave Toronto. He had asked for a trade. There was a point where he said he wasn't going to dunk the ball anymore. He was known for his slam dunks, but he said he wasn't going to do that anymore. A lot of fans thought he wasn't trying. They thought he wasn't putting the effort in anymore. And eventually he was traded. And he was booed for quite some time by Raptors fans when he came back after that. I mean, fans just weren't happy. He wasn't well accepted by Raptors fans for a long time. But then in 2014, and again, something he addressed on the court today, in 2014, he came back, and there was a time when they played a video tribute to him on the Jumbotron at Scotiabank Arena, and fans gave him a standing ovation. It was like they were welcoming him back into the family. He was playing for another team at the time, but he was in tears on the court at Scotiabank Arena. And over the years, it really has been a welcoming back for Vince Carter. He talked about being here in 2019, not as a player, but as a spectator, to watch the team win their first ever championship. And he talked about just how amazing it was and how proud he was of that. He's also going to be going into the Basketball Hall of Fame as a Raptor. He is fully back, and Masai Ujiri talked about how important it is to welcome him back into the family.
The Vince Carter effect is real. Yeah, it's real. And it doesn't matter what has happened. Time heals things, and we continue to build and build for the future. If we talk about championships, he's the one, and one of the ones that set us up to be where we are and hopefully where we can be.
He talked about the Vince Carter effect. You look around the NBA, you look at Canada's national basketball team, and you see so many players that were influenced by Vince Carter and what he did as a member of the Toronto Raptors. And that, of course, is one of the things that Masai Ujiri said was the reason he felt they needed to retire his number 15, Chris.
Greg, thanks so much for this. And returning to that horrible storm across Florida and Georgia today, neighborhoods were underwater and dozens of people are dead in the wake of Hurricane Helene. Trees were uprooted, boats pushed onto front lawns, and 4 million homes and businesses have lost power. And Colette, when you see the devastation there, it's it's really startling, of course, and a lot of people will want to know where is the storm at right now.
Yeah, and so it's moved a little bit further north, but it's kind of become trapped there around that Tennessee Valley. And this has really been bad news. I was talking about earlier in the week just how much rain, like in western North Carolina and South Carolina, they've been seeing recently before Helene got there, and because of this additional moisture that's moving in there, that's why there are so many flash flood emergencies in so many counties. And we're not just talking about the flooding, we're talking about dams breaking, landslides, especially in western North Carolina. So really catastrophic here. The areas where you see the white coloration or contours here, that's over 100 millimeters of rain going through tonight to about lunchtime tomorrow. So even Nashville looking at exceeding 100 millimeters of rainfall through that area. As it kind of gets, it's going to meld with this upper low. That's what's happening. And it almost gets stuck there, or at least in that region, after it moved very, very quickly inland. So a look at that rain compared to what we may see on the very far outskirts of these remnants of Helene. So a couple of millimeters. Yes, we'll have a few scattered showers. That's enhanced slightly into southwestern Ontario, where this weekend it may be 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall. Locally, they could have a thunderstorm in this area. Windsor, you could see that, and that could give you slightly more. Daytime highs today, we're going to find the numbers into the weekend just slightly cooler than that, but there's the cloud cover that's been moving in throughout the day. Those showers just kind of spiraling rattling around for the next day or two, but the winds are the other story. So those winds have been up towards 50, the gusts over 50 kilometers an hour in southwestern Ontario this evening, and we're going to find those kicking up through the GTA now through the overnight hours, and then they'll start to back off as we get later in the day tomorrow, but still breezy conditions for us through the day tomorrow. So a look quickly at your overnight lows, and then your highs for tomorrow, 21, same thing into Sunday with that cloud cover and chance of showers.
Sounds great. Have a good weekend, Colette.
Thank you. You too, Chris.
And before we go, staff at an historic mansion in Toronto, affectionately known as our city's Downton Abbey, are remembering actress Maggie Smith tonight, who died today at the age of 89.
She's so iconic, I think. She's so funny in that role and also has such gravity as an actor. And I think one of the things I love about it is Maggie Smith was in her 70s at the time, and you don't always get to see women in that time of life on screen having such amazing roles. I mean, she's an absolute fan favorite. People were always asking about her. And when we did the dressing for Downton exhibit, we had a lot of her costumes on display. We had one of her iconic hats from the show, and people would get so excited because they just had such love for that character and that actress. It was really cool.
Yeah, lots of people are loving on Maggie Smith today. And apart from Downton Abbey, Smith was best known for her iconic role as Professor McGonagall in the Harry Potter films. Her illustrious career spanned 7 decades across the stage, the screen, and of course television as well.